The chilling shadow of that ancient tale still clings to the memory, a spectral cold that no sun can fully chase away. To recast this narrative in the unforgiving mold of American Gothic horror is to steep it in encroaching dread, to sharpen the unsettling whispers of the past into palpable terror. I don't know what deep-seated vendetta that geomancer held against his lineage, but everything consecrated on this cursed earth was a vessel for affliction. At its mildest, it brought a slow, wasting sickness and relentless misfortune. At its zenith, a violent, premature end for any generation that dared to follow. The very foundation of the house was a convergence point, a nexus for the 5 great feng shui slayings: the slaying of form, the slaying of light, the slaying of air, the slaying of sound, and the slaying of wind. The confluence was a silent, lethal promise of annihilation. The night was a vast, ink-black chasm, and I moved down the rutted dirt road, a path etched too deeply in my muscle memory. A lurid, bloated full moon hung overhead, its light not warm, but a spectral, sickly shimmer filtered through the canopy of tamarind leaves. The air was a breath of the grave, cool and carrying the first sharp edge of the season's chill as a gentle breeze set the leaves in a dry, rattling dance. I burrowed my hands deeper into the rough wool of my jacket, a deep, shuddering sigh escaping my lips as I trudged toward the faint, sickly yellow glow marking Auntie Hi's Congee shack. In the distance, under that weak, flickering kerosene lamp, I saw a few shadowy figures huddled. Auntie Hi's battered cart was eternally stationed beside a cluster of ancient moss-slicked graves, perpetually veiled in a thick, sweet haze of cloying incense smoke. The scene was steeped in such somber, profound stillness that the locals had christened the spot, with a morbid wit, the graveyard Congee stand. The community was sparse, isolated hamlets separated by vast, unyielding stretches of fallow farmland. The roads were nothing more than narrow tracks of dried mud, and the gift of electricity hadn't yet pierced the dense isolation of this corner of the country. Yet, Auntie Hi's stall had endured for nearly 2 decades. Every night, precisely at the stroke of midnight, she would silently wheel out her cart, selling until the first pale light of dawn. I'd heard the chilling whispers that some nights she wouldn't serve a single soul, but she never faltered, a lone sentinel against the unpredictable elements and the long, hollow night. As I approached the flimsy bamboo table, I recognized the shapes. Old Man 2, a man whose face was a map of hard living, a field away, and Anh Quach, a few years my senior. I offered a clipped, polite greeting. Old Man 2 lifted his head, his face crumpling into a too wide, unsettling smile. How? Is that truly you? When did you return? Why the silence? Come, draw up a seat. I was just at your father's house for tea recently, and you were nowhere to be seen. I settled onto the low stool, the damp chill seeping into the worn wood. I only arrived back this morning. A sudden, visceral craving for Auntie Hi's Congee possessed me, so I decided to stop by and offer my respects. I gave Auntie Hi a brief nod. She materialized with a steaming bowl, her face a rigid, haunting mask of quiet sorrow. "You are whole, child?" she asked, her voice a low, breathy rasp. "I am, thank you," I replied. "Good," she murmured, a faint, almost non-existent smile disturbing her lips before she retreated back into the shadows of her cart. Auntie Hi was a woman of stark silence, but a heart rumored to be immense, though her face was always deeply etched with some profound private agony. Old Man 2 carefully rolled a cigarette, took a long, rattling drag, and exhaled a thin, serpentine wisp of smoke that coiled into the murky, yellow lamplight. It seemed to pierce and dissolve my own shadowy form cast on the uneven ground, and for a few disorienting seconds, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Anh Quach took a measured sip of his tea, then clapped a heavy hand onto my shoulder. "How? A rumor has crawled out of the darkness. Is it true that you possess the sight?" "That you can commune with the dead? I find it difficult to believe, but I demand to hear the truth from your own mouth." Before I could form a response, a loud, sharp crash split the silence. Auntie Hai had let a congee bowl slip through her numb fingers. Her face seemed to retch and contort for a fraction of a second before recovering its stillness. "Well?" Anh Quach pressed, his voice taut. "Is the rumor the truth?" Feeling a sudden, sickening wave of unease, I gave a shallow shrug and forced a smile. "Just a nasty rumor, man. Don't let your mind be poisoned by everything you hear." I quickly pivoted the conversation. "Old man, too. Why are these graves always alight with incense? Is it Auntie Hai who maintains them?" "Indeed, that's correct. Every night she sets up her small enterprise, she lights the offerings for these graves. When one bundle crumbles to ash, she lights another. She keeps a whole stack of them stored on that shelf right there, can't you see?" he said, a bony finger pointing toward the back of the cart. "Are they her kin?" I asked. "I couldn't tell you, but it's likely just a matter of courtesy for occupying their space." "One must always demonstrate the proper deference to the spirits, so they will bestow their blessing upon your humble trade." I offered a silent nod, allowing his words to settle like sediment in my thoughts. I was raising a spoonful of congee to my lips when Old Man Two's voice dropped, turning low, guttural, and deeply serious. "Speaking of the hungry dead, allow me to share with you a ghastly chronicle of a vengeful phantom that has stained my memory forever." A sudden, vicious, cold gust of wind sliced through our small gathering, setting the surrounding leaves and the branches of the banyan trees into a frantic, chaotic shaking, an unnerving prelude to his dark tale. He lifted his sun-withered, sinewy hand to his lips, took one last, long drag on his cigarette, and began. "It feels as immediate as yesterday. It was the cusp of the rainy season, and I was still a vigorous young fool. When the rains came, all the men in the village would arm themselves with torches and venture out on the frog hunt. That night, after your Auntie Two had finally settled the children into a restless sleep, I grabbed my bamboo trap, ignited my torch, and slid out the side door. Your aunt materialized in the doorway, a shadow in the gloom, and stopped me. "Where do you think you're going in that direction?" she whispered. "Frog hunting. Where else?" I grumbled. "But you always join the others at the Groupmut fields. That way leads only to the river." "What business do you have there?" "The others have a huge crowd, so I'm heading to the Groupnum fields. I might claim a larger bounty that way." But what? Come on, it's late." "I have heard that, at night, the river behind our house is haunted by malefic spirits," your Auntie Two stammered, her voice shaking. I just dismissed her with a wave of my hand. "You are forever listening to the terrified gossip of old women. I am going." I waded through the night, the swamp behind the house sucking at my boots. Back then, it was all unspoiled, feral wilderness. Ghosts were the furthest thing from my mind. All I focused on was the rhythmic, croaking chorus of the frogs and the sharp, crackling snarl of my torch. Occasionally, a cinder would detach and fall into the black water with a brief, chilling hiss. I pushed through the tangled forest until I reached the river's edge, then pulled the small sampan I kept hidden in a tangle of bush out onto the water. I secured the torch on the boat's bow and began to paddle with slow but deliberate strokes. The banks were bordered by unsettling rows of nipa palm and ancient, gnarled banyan trees, their limbs heavy with parasitic vines. Your Auntie Two's warning had a grim origin. A lifetime ago, a family was brutally annihilated right on this stretch of river. A band of savage men had broken into their home, severed their heads, and cast all 5 of their bodies into the dark, indifferent water. No one ever truly knew the motive, though the locals whispered of a botched robbery. The area was a lawless, forgotten place then. Their bodies were supposedly interred near their house by the river, but the graves have long since been swallowed by the earth. The locals still whisper of seeing the headless ghosts of the 5 victims standing by the water's edge in the dead of night, their spectral arms waving, beckoning. Some even swear they've seen them flying back and forth over the water, but I had always scoffed at such hysterical fables. Known for my unyielding demeanor, I just kept paddling. The thin, sickly crescent of the moon cast a bizarre, oily glow on the eerily still water. The frog's chorus had fallen silent, replaced only by the distant, desolate hooting of an owl, a sound that seemed to echo from an ethereal void. Without warning, my torch snuffed out. That's unnerving, I thought. There is no discernible wind. I was so lost in this minor apprehension that I failed to register the true, looming danger. I looked up, and the landscape seemed unnaturally clear without the disruptive blazing flame. Silence. That is the only word that can capture it. It was a silence so profound it felt physically heavy. I continued to paddle, the water giving a small, faint lapping sound against the wooden side of the boat. The embers of my dead torch glowed with a malevolent brilliance in the utter blackness, bobbing on the gentle waves like the restless, untethered souls of the deceased. Plop, plop. I froze solid. A distinct, unnatural sound had intruded upon the deep night. It sounded sickeningly like something swimming. I tightened my grip on the paddle, my eyes straining into the absolute blackness toward the source of the noise. In the distance, near a clump of nipa palms, the water was churning violently. I couldn't discern any specific shape in the gloom. Must be some wretched chicken thieves, I reasoned. I seized the rusty cleaver I kept hidden on the boat and paddled, slowly, deliberately, toward the churning. When I was only a few feet away, the shroud of cloud covering the moon finally drifted away, and the weak, spectral moonlight illuminated a vision of unmitigated horror. A soaking wet, cadaver-pale face grinned at me with a look of pure maniacal malice. Its body was shriveled, bruised, and distended, and across its neck was a gaping, wet gash that seemed to flex open and closed, revealing something utterly grotesque within. My jaw dropped, and I fumbled, the cleaver slipping from my numb fingers. I nearly lost my balance and toppled into the black, waiting water. Its malicious, dead eyes fixed upon mine, sending a jolt of pure, raw electricity from my spine straight to the roots of my neck. Before I could regain any semblance of composure, it shot out of the water with impossible speed and scurried up a gnarled, twisted banyan tree that hung over the river. It perched on a thick branch like a hideous monkey, then suddenly hung by its limbs, crawling back and forth on the branch, and letting out a high-pitched, cackling laugh that echoed with a deep, bottomless, bitter resentment. The nearby owl flapped its wings in terror and disappeared. At that moment, I could no longer bear to look. It took a long, terrible moment to regain a sliver of my wits. My hand, locked onto the paddle, trembled violently as if seized by a deadly fever. I tried to paddle faster, but the sampan only moved by agonizing, inching increments. Then something unimaginably more horrifying occurred. As the boat passed directly beneath the branch, a human head dropped onto the bow with a sickening, wet thud. The same malicious eyes, the same chilling, wet cackle. The head bounced once on the boat's floor before it rolled sickeningly off the side and into the water. I had reached my limit. I spun the boat around, paddling with a frantic, desperate energy I didn't know I possessed. I didn't dare glance back. I didn't even dare to utter a sound, but a choked, strangled scream was clawing its way out of my throat. The horror was not yet complete. As I fled, I heard the sound of something large dropping into the water behind me with a loud thud. A profound, overwhelming sense of impending doom washed over me. The sound of churning water was racing toward me from the darkness. I was sobbing, paddling for the worthless remnants of my life. Suddenly, a loud thump, thump, thump echoed from the bottom of the boat, followed by a bony, pale hand shooting up from the water, clamping onto the side of the sampan near my thigh. In a blinding panic, I seized the cleaver from the boat and hacked wildly at its grasping fingers. Then, without a conscious thought, I launched myself into the cold water and swam for the shore with all the strength of terror. I ran through the forest like a creature possessed, branches snapping and tearing at my skin as I went. When I finally burst into the clearing of my house, I collapsed onto the wet ground, gasping for air like a drowning man. Your auntie too rushed out, weeping, convinced I was suffering a stroke. The next morning, I slowly came back to myself and told her every terrifying detail. She went ghastly pale, immediately summoned a folk healer to treat the shock, and a medium to perform a cleansing ritual. I was confined to my bed, trembling and sweating, for an entire week. After that night, I never ever dared to approach that river after the sun had set again. Old Man Two paused, a faint, chilling smile playing on his lips. It wasn't until much later that your Auntie Two disclosed that the medium, Old Man Nam, was a man of truly dangerous talent. The name snagged in my mind. I interrupted, my voice hushed. Old Man Nam? Who is this man? He's a name whispered throughout the area, from the water lily swamp itself. Ask your father, he's sure to have heard the name. He's known for being peculiar. I gave a curt nod, urging Old Man Two to continue his dreadful narrative. Your Auntie Two had to make the long, uneasy trek all the way to that swamp to convince him to come. He instructed her to procure a pig's head, a heavy offering, along with other specific tributes. Then he went to the river alone, at the darkest hour of the night. He issued a stern warning to her, not to follow, not even to approach the place of the murders. A few hours later, he simply reappeared and stated, "The debt has been settled. You will be fine now." He took his meager belongings and vanished into the pre-dawn blackness. The following morning, I was able to sit up, the fever finally broken. Anh Quach gave a sharp, resounding slap to his thigh, his eyes wide. By the ghosts, Old Man Nam sounds like a fearsome power, doesn't he, Old Man 2? I almost let out a cynical laugh at the sight of Anh Quach's awestruck, gaping expression. If he lacked that power, I'd be nothing but dust under your feet right now, wouldn't I? I wouldn't be here, spinning this yarn. Old Man 2 chuckled, a sound more dry than mirthful. Anh Quach scratched the side of his head, then gave the bamboo table a playful, jarring slap. Old Man 2, since the air is thick with these wicked tales, and since Hao is here, what do you say we order a bottle of spirits to ward off the chill and exchange a few more ghost stories? If you're game, the cost is on my head, and I have a truly disturbing chronicle of my own that demands to be heard. What are your thoughts? Old Man 2's eyes immediately lit up with an unnerving, predatory glint. He turned to me. What say you, Hao? I hesitated. I am not much of a drinker, gentlemen. You two forge ahead, I'll gladly remain a silent audience. Nonsense, lad. A few measures of strong liquor won't claim your soul. Besides, it's not every day Anh Quach sacrifices his coin. If you're concerned about your father's scolding, just tell him that I goaded you into it. Anh Quach cut in, his voice slightly wounded. Old Man 2, don't make me sound like a miser. I had pressing business awaiting me at first light, but to refuse them now would be an intolerable breach of etiquette. After a moment of grim contemplation, I reasoned that a few drinks with these old hands wouldn't shatter my obligations. I agreed. Anh Quach swiftly darted to Auntie Hai to place a hurried order, returning with the bottles and some small bites himself. The fuel for the night is here. Let the session of specters commence, Old Man 2. Anh Quach poured a glass to the brim, a dangerously generous amount, and handed it to Old Man 2. You begin the second round. Old Man 2 was just raising the glass to his lips when I stopped him with an outstretched hand. Hold on, Old Man 2. May I borrow your glass for one moment? You want to steel your nerves first? Be my guest. I took the glass and walked toward Auntie Hai's silent cart. I requested a small bundle of incense sticks. All eyes at the table were fixed on my movement. I lit the incense, letting the pungent, sweet smoke curl and twist into the still air. I moved toward the small, worn spirit house beneath the menacing banyan tree, lit 3 sticks there, and then returned to the table. I placed 3 more sticks into the seat of the empty bamboo chair next to me, then lifted the glass of liquor, my voice a low, gravelly mutter. On this full moon night, when the gates between the worlds are thin and open, spirits pass through. If you are lingering here near our light, you are welcome to a few drinks. We share only harmless stories. Listen, but do not touch the living. Do not make sport of us if you find us agreeable. Do not be reckless if you harbor resentment. Remember the boundaries. The Earth God stands to the west. The White Tiger keeps watch to the east. I offer this first glass, consecrated to you, wandering spirits. After finishing the solemn improvised prayer, I poured the liquor in a slow, precise semicircle around the empty bamboo chair. When I looked up, their faces were blanched and frozen, staring at me with a primal, wide-eyed terror. Anh Quach's complexion was the color of a shroud. He stammered, his teeth chattering. What in the name of the ancestors was that, Hao? Don't tell me. You truly possess the second sight? You've seen something lurking around us here, haven't you? Do not play this terrifying game with me, man. Old Man 2 added, his voice stripped of its earlier joviality. What were the precise words of that prayer you just uttered? I I waved my hands dismissively, trying to force an air of nonchalance I didn't feel. It's not what your minds are conjuring. I simply heard the old sages say that one must always be mindful when sharing a meal and drink, whether the company is the living or the dead. The prayer was just something I hastily fabricated. Dismiss it from your thoughts. Anh Quach let out a long, shuddering sigh of relief. Man, you nearly sent me to an early grave. I truly thought you were afflicted or something. I gave a short, strained chuckle and poured another full glass for Old Man 2. He took a long, deep, satisfied gulp and let out a rattling sigh. Anh Quach stared at him, his face a mask of desperate thirst. He didn't wait for me to tend to him, seizing the bottle and filling his own glass until the liquid nearly spilled over the rim. He swallowed it in a single rough motion. The pungent, suffocating smell of the raw liquor merged with the rich, heavy aroma of the congee. I felt a dizzying pressure in my head, almost drunk without having taken a single sip. I laughed to myself at the sheer, rare absurdity of our gathering. I took my first sip. I winced sharply, as if I had bitten into a raw chili pepper. Old Man 2 and Anh Quach erupted in laughter at my pained expression, but I couldn't care less. I felt the scorching warmth of the alcohol spread from my throat, a fiery serpent coiling in my belly. The initial bitterness faded, leaving behind a subtle, haunting sweetness from the rice wine and a warm, immediate buzz. My tongue felt strangely numb. It had been years since I last drank, not since I graduated and offered my last hurried farewells to my friends. I looked up, raised my head, and with the affected air of a seasoned, weary drinker, let out a long, drawn-out "ah." They froze for a few bewildering seconds, then roared with laughter. "Already listing after a single glass, my boy," Old Man 2 teased. "I told you I lack the capacity for drink," I said, scratching my head sheepishly. "All right, let us return to the shadows of our late-night stories," Old Man 2 declared, turning to Anh Quach. "Anh Quach, you boasted of a story you yearned to share. Let the horror commence." "Yes, I do," Anh Quach said, his voice instantly turning gravel serious. "Allow me to have one more drink to steady the nervous tremor in my hands." He visibly shivered, then took a long, steady sip, his eyes never leaving the glass. His weak smile vanished, replaced by a distant, profound sorrow. I knew then that this was a chronicle that had happened to him. He let out a profound, heavy sigh and began the recollection. "You will likely brand me a liar, but this sequence of events is the absolute truth, and I am the one who set the terrible mechanism in motion. The one who invited the full weight of the misfortune that is about to unfold." I am still consumed by such vicious regret, and I hate that thing to this very day. Old Man 2, you remember my wife, men, don't you? We were married, and a year later, our son Lee was born. I was consumed by a blinding happiness. I constantly whispered promises to men that when he grew older, I would teach him this and that, even though I knew nothing of substance myself. He forced a hollow, dry laugh before continuing. "When Lee turned 3, I believed our lives would settle into a peaceful, unmarred calm. But then the fateful day arrived. The village chief, Mr. Bin summoned me to his house to assist him in harvesting the fish from his pond and then dredging the silt for a new crop. I had no desire to go. I held a powerful aversion to that man. You are aware of how cheap and utterly unpleasant he is. But he promised a payment that was impossibly large, so I capitulated. He took me on his bicycle, we traversed a muddy track, and then had to carry the bike over several fields to reach his isolated house. It was my first time seeing the place. From a distance, his house appeared quite handsome and unnaturally well maintained, but I felt a strange, almost suffocating atmosphere clinging to the air around it. He led me to the back, his pregnant second wife trailing silently behind us. He pointed to the still, stagnant pond and said, "There it is. You can manage this for me, yes? I've set up a water pump. You can drain the water, collect the fish, and then dredge the bottom for me. I must attend to urgent business at the market. I'll be back soon." I was taken aback. "You didn't enlist any other laborers? The pond is immense." "I cannot do this work alone." "Oh," I asked, but everyone suddenly found themselves occupied. "Just execute the task to the best of your ability, all right?" He didn't wait for my response. He simply turned and departed. I swallowed my protest and accepted the gross injustice. I knew he was a nefarious man, but he offered such an exorbitant wage because he expected me to complete the entire impossible job alone. 2 days of backbreaking labor wouldn't have been sufficient. I looked at the pond and let out a tired sigh. It was badly overgrown with thick trees and choking weeds, so I had to hack them all down. I started the pump and spent half the day simply clearing the perimeter. The water was almost entirely gone. I peered into the shallow bottom and was struck by a sickening shock. There were no fish at all, only a thick, unsettling carpet of fish bones. I was still wondering what catastrophe had befallen the stock when Mr. Bin returned. He looked as genuinely shocked as I was. "What has happened to all my fish, Quach?" "You are asking me? I demand the same answer. Did you provoke someone into poisoning your pond?" "Impossible. I am a kind, benevolent man. I never court conflict." And for the past few nights, I distinctly heard the fish feeding. Even if they had been poisoned, their rotting bodies would have floated to the surface. They would not have simply disintegrated into bones like this. This is unnatural. I don't care about the explanation. Are you continuing to dredge the pond or not? If not, pay me what you owe and I will depart for home. Of course I am. He spun away in a cloud of manufactured indignation, and I resigned myself to the work. I rolled up my trousers and waded into the viscous bottom of the pond. The mud was frighteningly deep, reaching up to my waist, and the stench was overwhelming, a reek of death and decay. It must have been the concentration of the dead fish, I thought. I began shoveling the mud onto the bank, one heavy scoop at a time. The sun was dipping low, so I hurried, shoveling a few more scoops to finish the section. As I raised my shovel and plunged it down again, I heard a loud, unmistakable clunk. I stopped, my heart hammering, and felt around blindly in the thick, suffocating mud. And do you know what my fingers closed around? A human arm bone. I was so seized by terror that I stumbled backward, falling, my face turning the sickly white of bone dust. After a long moment, the panic subsided just enough for rational thought. I was about to scream for Mr. Bin when a strange impulse made me stop. I looked closely at the bone. There was something fixed onto it. I summoned a terrible courage and reached out my trembling hand to grab the bone. I wiped away the thick mud and saw a beautiful, unmistakable gold bracelet. It was clearly a woman's piece. How did a woman end up dead down here? Thinking about the discovery now, I feel a profound, burning shame. Anh Quach fell into a chilling silence, then poured me another glass of the burning liquor. He stared down at his hands, and when he spoke, his voice was a low, desolate whisper. Instead of immediately summoning the authorities, my greed took root like a poisonous vine and choked out my decency. I took the bracelet and buried the arm bone back into the deep, wet mud. I pretended the encounter had never happened, took the cursed money from bin, and went home. I showed the gold bracelet to men, already making plans to sell it, and finally fix the leak in our bedroom roof. But my wife looked at me and said, "Husband, is this truly the right course of action? The elders whisper that if you take things that belong to the dead, they will follow you home." I was overcome with a deep, crushing melancholy, and I told her, "Do not harbor such dark thoughts, Lee's mother. Our bedroom is a sieve, and the heavy rainy season is nearly upon us. Lee is nearly old enough for school. How are we to manage expenses if we don't have the coin? But it will be fine." "I will take it to the market and sell it. You simply stay inside and watch the child." "Wait, husband. Perhaps we should keep it concealed for now and only sell it when the absolute dire necessity arrives." I considered her plea for a moment, the temptation of the money warring with a cold dread. "All right, we shall do that." So my wife secreted it away in the gloom of our bedroom cupboard, and I returned to the exhausting, joyless grind of my days. Then came one suffocating night, the air thick and heavy, pressing down like a weight. I returned home, utterly spent from a day of labor. Lai was soundly, innocently asleep, and my wife was in the kitchen, preparing our meager dinner. I placed my hoe on the rack and moved toward the kitchen to embrace her, but the moment I touched her, a wave of profound, unearthly coldness washed over me, and a strange, foul odor assailed my nostrils. I recoiled instantly. You are stricken with fever? Why are you so cold?" Men turned, her smile too wide, too fixed. "I'm perfectly fine. Oh, husband, look, isn't this beautiful?" She gave her wrist a sharp shake, and the bracelet, the cursed gold, rattled loudly. I was shocked. "Why are you wearing that?" "It's fine, dear." "I am just trying it on. I will remove it and put it away." I snapped at her, the fear of burning sickness in my gut. "Put it away now. We will be utterly ruined if anyone sees that thing." "Fine, fine," she huffed, putting the bracelet back into the cupboard and retreating to the bedroom. I ate my dinner in silence and followed her to bed. In the deepest hour of the night, I woke with the sudden, pressing need to relieve myself. I lit the small oil lamp, stumbled out of the bedroom, and went to the quiet corner by the coconut tree. Everything was shrouded in a dim, sickly yellow light, and the wind, rustling through the palm leaves, sounded like a whispering threat. A sudden, ice-cold draft crawled up my trousers, and I shivered violently. Then I heard it, a distinct sound of water splashing behind the house, near the washing area. That is profoundly strange, I thought. Is my wife taking a bath? It is far past midnight. I rushed back inside, retrieved the chimney lamp, and approached the washing area. The weak yellow light gradually pushed back the suffocating darkness, revealing my surroundings. I let out a sigh of relief. It was indeed men, her back toward me as she performed her ablutions. I gave a nervous, forced laugh and tried to make a joke. "Ahem! You would do well to get thoroughly clean, as I detected a foul odor about you this afternoon. Hurry now and get back inside before you catch a chill." I turned, placed the lamp on the kitchen shelf, and was reaching for a towel when a pair of arms wrapped around me from behind. I assumed, with a sense of dread, that it was men. What? Are you suddenly cold? She did not reply. I reached down to hold her hands, but I was struck by a shocking discovery. She was wearing the bracelet again. I was about to deliver a furious scolding when my eyes lifted to the wall. The chimney lamp cast my shadow on the woven bamboo, but the shadow of my wife was absent. My knees buckled. A violent tremor seized me. Who was holding me? The thick, putrid stench returned, heavier now. I used every ounce of my strength to tear myself free and spun around to face the figure. What I witnessed caused me to collapse to the ground and scramble away like a terrified child. Before me was a grotesque mimicry in the form of men, with half her face utterly rotted away. Her jaw hung loose, disconnected, and her features were a mess of bloody, putrefied flesh, with writhing maggots visible in the decaying tissue. It smiled, a faint, awful movement, its vacant eyes fixed on me, and began to advance with a slow, sickening deliberation. The wind outside rose into a sudden, deafening shriek, and then, poof! The lamp was extinguished, plunging me into a thick, suffocating darkness. Then, poof! The lamp flared back to life, but this time the repulsive, smiling face was inches from my own. It let out a terrifying, piercing cackle that sliced through the dead silence of the night. I screamed a raw, desperate sound of horror and fled back toward the bedroom. When I reached the doorway, men suddenly appeared, and I tripped, falling hard again, my face a mask of primal white terror. My wife was holding the small oil lamp, rubbing the sleep from her eyes, and asked, her voice trembling, "What is wrong, husband? Why are you screaming like a madman in the middle of the night? You will terrify the baby." I slowly, cautiously got to my feet. Is that truly you, love? What are you speaking of? Of course it is me." I raised my shaking hand and touched her chin. It was her. It was truly her. At this point, I muttered under my breath, "It must have been a spirit borrowing a soul. This is a deadly serious affair." Old Man 2 clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. "What is it, Hal?" "Oh, nothing, Old Man 2. Anh Quach, please continue the account." Anh Quach nodded, his eyes wide and unfocused, and went on. I grabbed my wife's arm and yanked her into the room, violently slamming the door shut behind us. After a moment of ragged, heaving breaths, I demanded, "Where is the bracelet? Where is that bracelet?" "In the cupboard, just as you instructed me." "Give it to me. I must take it to the market this very moment." "Hurry. Are you utterly mad, husband? It is the dead of night. Who on earth would purchase it now? Tell me what has happened." I could not answer. I forced myself to take a few ragged breaths to regain control. "I will sell it first thing tomorrow morning. I cannot keep that thing in this house another hour. Husband, please, tell me the terrible truth of what is happening." "It is nothing. Go back to sleep with the baby." "You should try to sleep as well. You have labor tomorrow." She lay down, but sleep was a distant memory for me. I lit a cigarette and sat rigidly on the edge of the bed, my eyes darting ceaselessly between my wife's still form and the dark outline of the cupboard where the evil artifact was concealed. I remained there, a sleepless, terrified sentinel, until the first distant crow of the roosters. Men woke and saw me already dressed. "Where are you going?" "To the market." "What about Mrs. Doe's field? You gave your word to help her clear it, and she will come here and scream if you fail to appear." I stopped, the realization hitting me. My wife continued, her voice soft. "Why don't you go to work now and tell her you must leave at noon?" You can still go to the market later then. All right. But you must not, under any circumstance, take that thing out. Do you understand? I understand, husband. Now, go to work. I went to the field with my hoe, but my heart was a heavy, dead weight of dread, and my fear, of course, was horribly realized. That morning, my wife was weaving palm leaves in the front yard. Lai was playing quietly inside the house. Suddenly, he ran out to Men. "Mommy, I have a friend to play with now." My wife was utterly confused. Our house was isolated, set in the middle of a field. Where would he have conjured a friend? Who are you talking about? The lady inside our house. Lee pointed back toward the doorway. Men strained her eyes, but she could not discern any figure. "There is no one inside, darling." "Yes, there is, Mom. She is standing by the door, and she is smiling." Men was suddenly overcome with a fresh wave of paralyzing worry. "Just play here in the front yard. Do not go back inside. Wait for your father to return home." Lee obediently moved to the fishing net I had hung out to dry and sat down to play by himself. Men felt a small, fleeting wave of relief and returned to her weaving. After a terrifying while, she realized the silence was absolute. "Sure, here's the text you asked for." She could no longer hear Lee's small, happy sounds. She looked up and saw him on his knees, his head fully inside the mouth of the fishing net, gently rocking back and forth. Men screamed, "Lai, that is a dangerous game! Come here right this instant!" Lai did not respond. My wife, suddenly enraged by his disobedience, grabbed a cane and rushed toward him, intending to deliver a sharp spanking. But when she roughly opened the net, Lee simply fell out, his small eyes bloodshot, his tongue grotesquely hanging out, and his body utterly pale and lifeless. My wife's legs dissolved beneath her. She fell to the dirt, crying hysterically, her screams for help swallowed by the empty fields. But Lee lay there, still, no longer breathing. Anh Quach choked on his words. His face contorted as fresh tears streamed down his cheeks, and Old Man Tu and I sat in silence, moved by the depth of his visible anguish. He wiped his face with a trembling hand and continued, his voice raw. Just then, I returned home. I saw Men clutching our son, her body shaking with a profound, tragic grief. I instantly knew the world had ended. I dropped my hoe and ran to her side. "What catastrophe has befallen Lai, wife?" Men only cried harder, choking out the words, "He is dead, husband." "Why? Why is he dead?" My wife could only shake her head and weep. I sobbed too, holding my son's small body, my heart a bonfire of pain. I looked at his neck and saw a faint red mark, a specific pattern etched onto his skin. I instantly remembered that it was the exact same pattern as the evil bracelet. I went insane. My eyes bulged, and I let out a raw animal scream. "Was it you?" I ran into the house, grabbed a heavy hatchet, and furiously dug the evil thing out of the cupboard, throwing it onto the dirt floor. I swung the hatchet wildly, burying the blade into the ground, a futile gesture of violence. The bracelet remained there untouched, but the dirt was covered in deep, jagged hatchet marks. I gritted my teeth and screamed, "You murdered my son! Are you satisfied now?" I bent down and grabbed the cursed bracelet, intending to hack it into pieces, but I was struck by a terrifying realization. The bracelet was not chipped at all. There was not even the faintest scratch upon the gold. I screamed again, "I am not afraid of you, demon!" I ran to the riverbank, threw the bracelet into the swift, unforgiving current, and then ran back to my wife. That day, I held the funeral for Lee. Because we were penniless, I simply constructed a small coffin and buried him behind our cursed house. My wife wept for days, and then slowly, horrifyingly, she began to slip into madness, sometimes speaking to herself, sometimes giggling uncontrollably at empty space. Every night, I was tormented by nightmares. Sometimes I saw a female ghost with a child secured to her by a spectral leash. Other times, I heard a mocking whisper right in my ear, "This is your own terrible doing," followed by a piercing, demonic cackling. For an entire waking month, I could not find a single night of peaceful sleep. One morning, my friend Ian arrived to ask me to join him for work. I tiredly pulled on my shirt. He took a sip of tea and said, "Did you hear the news, Quach?" "Hear what?" "Mr. Bin's wife had a miscarriage." "What?" I looked up at him in stunned surprise. "How?" "I heard the whispers down at the swamp that Bin's wife was frightened by a ghost. They say she went to the outhouse behind the house late at night and saw a white figure crawl out of the pond. She was so terrified that she stumbled, fell, and had the miscarriage." "And? Just listen. Calm yourself. Mr. Bin has been desperately searching for a medium to exorcise his house." "I heard a very powerful one is due to arrive today." Hearing that detail, a desperate idea sparked in my mind. I told Ian to go on ahead. I ran to Mr. Bin's house, drenched in sweat and panting for air. After regaining my breath, I entered the property. As soon as I crossed the gate, I saw an old man, easily in his 70s, leisurely sipping tea in the yard. I walked slowly toward him. Before I could even open my mouth to greet him, he spoke. "Your forehead is gray, and your face is dull with fear. I perceive that you have run headlong into something that should never have been disturbed. Am I correct?" "Yes, honored sir." "I came here with the fervent hope that you could also extend your aid to me." The old man took another sip of his tea, lost in thought for a moment, and then Mr. Bin emerged from the house. He regarded the old man with an obvious, deep respect. "Sir, everything required is prepared." He then turned to me with an irritable glare. "Quach, what in the hell are you doing on my property?" Before I could formulate an answer, the old man rose and walked into the house. He returned a moment later with a sharp, heavy hatchet. Without a single word, he walked to the huge coconut tree that stood sentinel in front of Mr. Bin's house. He swung the hatchet, embedding the blade deep into the trunk. After a few strong, purposeful chops, the massive tree fell with a shattering crash to the ground, shocking both Mr. Bin and me into stunned silence. The old man then returned to the table, poured himself a fresh cup of tea, and calmly lit a cigarette, the smoke coiling into the disturbed air. Mr. Bin stammered, his voice choked with disbelief. "Sir, why did you chop down my coconut tree? My father, God rest his soul, planted it with his own hands when he was alive." The old man took a long drag on his cigarette and exhaled slowly. "Did you not know that the very feng shui of this house is riddled with slayings from every compass point? There is much that must be revealed. First, tell me, did your father construct this house himself, or did he employ an expert to assist?" Mr. Bin's voice was barely a whisper. He hired a geomancer. "I cannot fathom the depth of the feud your lineage had with that particular geomancer, but every single stone laid here is a curse. At its least malignant, it breeds only wasting illness and unending misfortune. At its worst, it guarantees a violent, premature end for any future generation." The house occupies a space that has fallen victim to all 5 of the feng shui slayings: the form slaying, the light slaying, the air slaying, the sound slaying, and the wind slaying. The form slaying is the visible, tangible evil energy channeled by an object. I will demonstrate two such evils right now. Do you understand why I annihilated that tree? No, sir. Because a large tree positioned directly in front of your main doorway is known as a doorway pole, a lethal transgression against feng shui that inevitably invites wasting sickness for the owner. That is why it now lies dead. Second, the main door is faced by a dead straight road, the one directly before your house. This is the dreaded road rushing, and the larger the road, the more violently potent the bad energy it channels. It is a profoundly dangerous alignment. Now, observe your surroundings. The land is grossly overgrown, strangling all life and blocking all the incoming light. This acts like a spiritual sieve, draining the house of all its positive energy and replacing it with a dense, clinging malevolence. And that, young man, is only the beginning. Come inside with me. The old man and Mr. Bin entered the house, and I followed them into the oppressive gloom. The old man pointed first at the front door, then at the back door. Look closely. Your front and back doors are in perfect alignment. Positive energy flows in and immediately escapes right out the back. This is called a throughway slaying. Now, look up at the ceiling. The main support beam slices directly through the center of the door frame. This is known as a center-piercing slaying. Do you experience difficulty sleeping? Do you feel a constant gnawing anxiety? Mr. Bin nodded frantically, his eyes wide and panicked. That is still not all. May I examine your bedroom? Yes, of course. Please examine everything. The old man walked into the bedroom, went to the window positioned directly over the head of Mr. Bin's bed, and peered out toward the side of the house for a long, unsettling moment. Then he turned, his gaze heavy. Whose grave is situated outside that window? My father's. What was the year of his birth? 1910. And yours? 1940. The old man mumbled a series of incomprehensible calculations to himself, then let out a deep, rasping sigh. To be brutally honest, it is a miracle you are still walking this earth. Mr. Bin looked utterly horrified. Sir, what does that mean? Did that geomancer instruct you to construct your father's grave to face sideways, with his feet pointing directly toward the house? Yes, sir. He claimed it would secure blessings for our family for all generations to come. The old man shook his head, a gesture of profound disappointment. Your father's grave is facing northeast, with his feet directed southwest, pointing right at the head of your bed. Your father was a metal sign. His astrological house is the Qian house. You are a fire sign, and your astrological house is the Li house. When the Qian metal meets the fire of your house, the yearly star, Wu Gui, the five-ghost star, is cast directly upon the head of your bed. Disaster will inevitably fall upon the firstborn son, which is you. This is an act of genuine malice. Mr. Bin's face was now the color of ash. Cold, slick sweat broke out across his forehead. He began to sob, sinking to his knees, utterly begging the old man for salvation. Sir, is there any possibility of saving my life? I do not wish to die. I am not yet finished. There is a horror even more profound than what I have already disclosed. Get to your feet and follow me to the fish pond. We all walked back out to the stagnant pond. At that point, the old man finally acknowledged my presence. He turned and addressed me directly. Young man, take a shovel. At the four corners of this pond, measure 3 spans from the edge and dig. Bring up whatever the earth yields. My face instantly went cold. I stammered, Find what, sir? Do not argue, just dig. Whatever you unearth, you will bring it up.